2:13 local time. Camp Lemonnier, Djibouti. Captain Marcus Vale is staring at a wall of live feeds, sipping cold coffee, watching the Red Sea blink with merchant traffic. In 18 minutes, everything he knows about routine surveillance will be shattered. High in Yemen's mountains, engines are already warming, launch rails are rising, and a hidden Houthi command hub is about to unleash a strike meant to paralyze one of the world's most critical maritime corridors. This is how a mountain war begins. The night air over Djibouti is still heavy, hot, almost lazy. Out on the flight line, maintenance crews move under red lights. Camp Lemonnier, the primary U.S. operating hub in the Horn of Africa, is carrying its usual burden tonight. Roughly 4,000 American joint and allied personnel, aircraft cycling in and out, our intelligence crews working the dark, and every one of them sitting just across the water from a region that can ignite with almost no warning. To the northeast lies the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, the funnel between the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea, a narrow throat, a strategic artery, one of those places where global commerce, military power, and bad decisions collide. Now imagine you're here. You can hear turbines in the distance. You can smell fuel on the air. The operations floor glows blue and green. Phones aren't ringing yet. Nobody is shouting. But that's how these nights work. Calm first, then the switch flips. Across the water, inside Yemen's rugged northwestern highlands, in a fictional scenario built on real terrain and real capabilities, a Houthi drone fortress has been carved into a mountain face in Hadja Governorate. Not a cartoon bunker, a layered complex. 3 tunnel mouths hidden beneath camouflage netting, hardened fiber links cut through stone, mobile launch cradles rolled into alcoves, drone assembly rooms buried behind blast doors, a satellite relay on the upper ridge, anti-aircraft guns dug into terraces below. The mountain overlooks smuggling routes, launch corridors, and enough terrain masking to make radar work miserable. From the outside, it looks like dead rock. Inside, it is an armed nervous system. The men running it believe they've solved the American problem. For months, U.S. and allied warships in the Red Sea have intercepted drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic threats launched from Houthi-controlled territory. The lesson the militants take from that is simple. The Americans can swat arrows, but they can't reach the archer fast enough. So tonight's fictional plan is designed around speed and saturation. 24 Kasef-type one-way attack drones, 12 longer-range Samad-style drones, 6 Quds-type land attack cruise missiles, 42 threats in total. Enough to split attention, flood tracking screens, and force destroyers, aircraft, and command posts to make ugly choices under pressure. Their objective is not just damage, it's humiliation. Strike a destroyer operating in the southern Red Sea, force 2 commercial vessels to divert, attempt a follow-on cruise missile shot against coalition surveillance infrastructure near Djibouti, film the launch, broadcast the claim, turn a regional harassment campaign into a strategic headline before sunrise. And why do they think they can pull it off? Because political pressure has made them reckless. Because prior airstrikes hit warehouses, trucks, and open launch sites, but not this buried hub. Because the mountain has protected them before. Because in their calculus, granite beats standoff weapons and geography beats response time. But there's a problem with their plan. They believe the rock makes them invisible. What they didn't account for is the kill chain forming above them long before the launch crews touch the rails. At 60,000 feet, an RQ-4 Global Hawk has been orbiting for hours, feeding persistent imagery, synthetic aperture radar returns, and movement tracks into the fusion cell. Lower down, 2 MQ-9 Reapers have been rotating in offset patterns, using infrared sensors to watch the tunnel mouths breathe heat into the cold mountain air. Signals analysts have been catching brief bursts of encrypted traffic bouncing off the ridge relay. Logistics patterns have changed. Fuel trucks arrived under tarp at dusk. Mule teams cleared by midnight. Vent fans switched to high at 1:47. To the militants, those are invisible details. To the Americans, that pattern means one thing: launch imminent. At 2:14, Captain Vale freezes the feed, rewinds 12 seconds, and sees it. Thermal bloom at Tunnel 2, then Tunnel 1. Then the upper ridge antenna swings north. He doesn't guess. He doesn't hesitate. He slams the alert. Within seconds, the operations floor at Camp Lemonnier shifts from routine to combat tempo. Battle watch officers lean into screens. A liaison cell pushes the track to naval commanders in the Red Sea. The warning jumps to Combined Joint Task Force Horn of Africa, and to airborne assets, to the carrier strike package on station, to a Ranger task force that has been waiting for a target exactly like this. This is the moment that matters in every modern conflict. Not the explosion, not the speech. Recognition. You're there now. Heart rate up. The room sounds different. Chairs scrape. Headsets snap on. A watch officer calls out, "Multiple emissions. Possible package launch." Another voice answers with coordinates. The giant screen populates with red markers. 1, then 5, then 19. Then the mountain fully wakes up. At 2:17, the first wave comes off the rails. From the ridge, one-way attack drones dive into programmed corridors toward the coast. Minutes later, 6 cruise missiles break from concealment, skimming low and turning west with terrain-masked precision. Now, the Houthi operators think they've bought themselves confusion. They think the Americans will stay defensive, keep their distance, and spend the next half hour trying to catch debris in the dark. They are half right. Defensive systems do activate, but that is only one half of the response. The other half is already moving toward them. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer in the southern Red Sea brings Aegis fully online. Naval radar paints the inbound tracks cleanly once they cross the masking ridge. Fire control solutions bloom across consoles. The first interceptors leap off the rails with that hard white stab only vertical launch cells can produce. Seconds later, another destroyer joins. Sea-based air defense doesn't look dramatic from the outside at first. It looks mathematical. Assign, launch, correct, kill. But then the sky starts tearing open. A drone disappears in a sudden orange blink. Another tumbles in pieces. A cruise missile catches a hit and becomes a shower of fuel and metal over black water. At the same time, F-35Cs launched earlier on alert status drop lower and accelerate into the fight. Their job is not to chase every target. Their job is to collapse the picture. They use sensors to sort the real threats from decoys, pass targeting data across the network, and then pick off leakers before those threats can fan out toward shipping lanes. One pilot rolls in behind a Samad-style drone, squeezes, and watches it vanish in a burst so brief it looks like a camera flash. Another angles toward a cruise missile racing low over the water. 4 seconds, that's all. Crosshair steady. Fox, flash, gone. How long do 4 seconds feel when you're the one making the shot? Long enough to think about the ship below. Long enough to think about what happens if you miss. Back in Djibouti, the battle map updates in brutal increments. Threats airborne, 42. Confirmed destroyed, 9. Then 14. Then 21. But this is where the fictional scenario turns from defense to hunt. Because while the destroyers and fighters are cutting down the outbound wave, a Ranger strike package gets execute authority. Not a broad invasion, not a symbolic hit. A direct-action decapitation raid designed to sever the command node before a second volley can leave the mountain. At 2:20, 4 MH-47G Chinooks and 2 MH-60M gunship escorts, flown by the 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment, lift into the dark. The Night Stalkers were built for missions like this. Low altitude, bad weather, heavy load, no margin. On board are 96 Army Rangers from the 75th Ranger Regiment, reinforced with medics, JTACs, communication specialists, and an explosive breach team. Faces blacked out, nods down, weapons between knees. Nobody is talking now. They've rehearsed contingencies. Not this mountain, not this night, but the kind of violence they're flying into. Above and behind them, 2 AC-130J Ghost Riders slide into support lanes. These aircraft are monsters in a controlled orbit, carrying 30mm and 105mm direct-fire weapons, plus precision munitions like GBU, 39 small-diameter bombs, AGM-176 Griffins, and Hellfires. They don't rush, they stalk. Patient, methodical, predatory. Now flip the view. From the mountain, the operators are celebrating too early. Their first drones are still airborne. Their cruise missiles are inbound. They think the Americans are busy. They think the darkness is still theirs. Then the first external cameras cut to static. The ridge relay hiccups. A generator shed on the south slope erupts in a tight, almost surgical flash. An outer anti-aircraft pit vanishes under cannon fire. Another tunnel approach collapses under a glide bomb that punches straight through the entrance lip and turns stone into dust. That's the flaw in their thinking. They hardened against missiles. They did not prepare for synchronized information dominance, maritime interception, airborne precision strike, electronic attack, and a heliborne assault arriving at once. At 2:24, EA-18G Growlers flood the battle space with electronic pressure. Comms wobble. Remote video links fail. GPS confidence drops. In the command room inside the mountain, Men start shouting over one another because their screens no longer agree. Some tracks vanish, others duplicate. Launch crews ask for confirmation that never comes. Meanwhile, a Reaper paints a truck trying to leave the rear service road. One hellfire later, the truck is a smoking barricade blocking the escape route. The Rangers cross the coast low enough to disappear into terrain clutter. Through night vision, the world becomes green bone and black void. The mountain rises ahead like a wall. Rotor wash slams dust across the slopes. Warning fire flashes from a lower terrace. One MH-60M answers with rockets and suppressive gunfire, walking destruction across the position until the muzzle flashes stop. At 2:27, the first Ranger chalk hits landing zone Copper, a narrow saddle 1.8 kilometers south of the main tunnel cluster. The second chalk lands on a higher shelf overlooking the ventilation ridge. The third and fourth insert the blocking force to the west, cutting the road and locking down likely exfil paths. Boots hit rock. Men fan out. Infrared strobes wink. Somebody slips on shale, recovers, keeps moving. You can hear breathing in the headsets now. Fast, controlled, very human. This is the point in every operation where all the technology narrows down to something ancient. Small groups of armed men climbing into danger. The mountain answers. Heavy machine guns from a false rock face. RPG trails from a terrace above. Tracer fire cracks across the slope. One Ranger goes down with a shoulder hit. Medic on him in seconds. Another team pivots left, finds the gun nest, marks it. And the AC-130 shreds the position with a short burst that sounds like the sky tearing cloth. Stone sprays. Silence returns for 2 seconds. Then the next threat appears. What do you do when the mountain itself starts firing back? You break it apart piece by piece. The western blocking element seizes a switchback road and destroys 2 pickup-mounted launch carts before they can be towed clear. The southern assault element reaches the first blast door and sets charges. Breach, flash, dust punches outward. Inside is not a single giant cavern but a maze. Storage alcoves, maintenance bays, cable trunks, drone racks, battery crates, guidance packages, fuel drums, and a command corridor leading deeper into the rock. Rangers flood the entrance under white-hot beams and IR pointers, controlled bursts, room by room, door by door. No wasted movement. Above them, the wider battle is still raging. Final outbound leakers race toward the sea. A destroyer engages 2 more. F-35s cut down another pair. One cruise missile survives long enough to force a merchant crew into emergency maneuvers before it is destroyed short of impact by layered naval defense. The sky that the Houthis thought would be a corridor has become a trap. Minute 4. First wave of drones eliminated over the Red Sea. Minute 9. 3 cruise missiles down, 2 more damaged, 1 forced off course. Minute 14. Outer air defenses on the mountain neutralized. Minute 19. Rangers breach the main tunnel. Minute 23. Command relay severed. Minute 31. Drone assembly hall burning. Minute 42. Exfil complete. That timeline tells its own story. Inside the mountain, the fight reaches the central operations hub at 2:33. It sits behind 2 reinforced doors and a final bend meant to shield it from blast. Screens on the wall, map boards, radio racks, hard drives ripped into portable cases. A regional commander and his staff are trying to decide whether to destroy the data or escape with it. Too late. A Ranger team hits from the front while another drops through an upper maintenance shaft identified earlier by overhead ISR. Crossfire collapses resistance in under a minute. Not a battle, not a test. A controlled elimination of the node that made the entire launch possible. Could you make that call if you were on that mountain? Burn the servers and run? Stay and fight? Trust the tunnel behind you? Those are the last decisions some men ever get to make. By 2:36, the objective shifts from seizure to systematic denial. This is critical. On destroying launchers is not enough. If you leave the command network, the fiber trunk, the satellite uplink, the assembly benches, the guidance inventory, and the power distribution intact, the fortress regrows. So, the raid force moves with purpose. SATCOM dishes on the upper ridge, destroyed. Tunnel generators, disabled. Drone fuselages stacked in storage, burned. Fuel reserves, detonated in controlled sequence. Guidance workshop, collapsed. Fiber node, cut and confirmed. Portable media, radios, and planning documents are bagged for exploitation. Future capability denial. That's the real mission. Outside, the AC-130s keep circling. Every time armed personnel attempt to regroup on a terrace or move toward the entrances, precision fire pins them or erases the position entirely. And one Ghost Rider crew chief later describes the scene in the only words that fit: targets appearing, disappearing, and then never moving again. Ruthless? Yes. Random? No. This is a fictional operation, but it reflects a real principle of special operations warfare. Speed without control is chaos. Precision without aggression is hesitation. You need both. At 2:39, secondary explosions begin deep in the complex. Battery packs cooking off, warheads igniting, drone propellant feeding chain reactions down maintenance alcoves. The mountain starts venting fire through cracks and cable ducts like it's breathing sparks. Rangers pull back to the outer chambers as demolition timers run. One team drags out a wounded militant for intelligence exploitation. Another helps carry the wounded ranger to the extraction point. Every second counts now, because even a successful raid can turn catastrophic if exfil slips. You're in that cockpit now, nose pointed into a black landing zone ringed by smoke, trying to hold steady while men and equipment pile aboard under tracer fire from some surviving pocket on the ridge. Rotor wash throws ash and gravel across the ramp. A crew chief is screaming hand signals. An escort helicopter rolls in and answers the last burst of enemy fire with a line of rockets that stitch the hillside and silence it. At 2:42, the demolition sequence reaches the core hub. The command room implodes first, then the relay corridor, then the upper launch chamber. A section of the mountain face buckles inward, and a column of orange-black smoke punches into the sky. Not a symbolic blast, structural death. The drone fortress that launched the strike is no longer a fortress. It is a burning excavation. By 2:55, the assault force is feet dry over the water, heading back toward friendly lines. Behind them, naval and air defenses finish cleaning the board. Final tally in this fictional scenario: 42 threats launched, 39 destroyed before they could strike anything of strategic value. 3 penetrated the outer defensive envelope, but none achieved decisive effect. On the ground, 1 major command hub destroyed, 3 tunnel entrances collapsed, 14 launch cradles ruined, 2 assembly halls burned out, 1 satellite relay eliminated, multiple fuel and ammunition stores lost. U.S. losses: 1 Ranger seriously wounded, 3 lightly wounded, no aircraft lost. Houthi losses: command staff neutralized or captured, launch crews shattered, future drone output crippled. And here's the bigger point. The most important weapon in this entire fictional operation wasn't the Tomahawk that never had to fire, or the cannon orbiting overhead, or the interceptor rising from a destroyer deck. It was the network, information dominance, the ability to see first, decide first, move first, and compress every domain, sea, air, electronic, and ground, into one relentless chain. The militants thought they were staging an attack. In reality, they were stepping into a hunt already closing around them. Less time than your lunch break. That's how long it took to go from hidden mountain fortress to strategic ruin. Modern warfare keeps teaching the same lesson in new uniforms. Buried bunkers help, mountains help, propaganda helps. But if your enemy owns the sensors, the links, the discipline, and the tempo, your fortress can become a coffin with a radio antenna. The defenders in this scenario didn't just stop a strike. They erased the machinery behind it before a second wave could ever form. And that should make every military planner on the planet pay attention. Because the future may not belong to the side with the biggest stockpile. It may belong to the side that can fuse detection, authorization, and violence into one uninterrupted decision cycle. Find, fix, finish, then deny regeneration. So which decision was most critical? The early ISR detection, the naval interceptions, or the choice to send Rangers into the mountain before the network could recover? Debate below. Hit subscribe for in-depth military breakdowns.